This week on the Squatchers Lounge podcast, we've done the woo, we've done the interdimensional travelers. Tonight, we do Giorgio A. Giorgio Tsoukalos. That's right, the hair boy himself. We're going to be talking about ancient alien origins and Bigfoot. This is going to be a good one, folks. I'm not saying it's aliens, but it's aliens. So without further delay, I give to you your host, the man, the myth, the Reverend Jeff Kelly.
I'm not saying it's aliens, but it's aliens. That's right, folks. Welcome to the Squatchers Lounge podcast. We are here to beat you up with alien Bigfoot theory, and my buddy tonight with me, as always, is Father David Batdorf. How you doing, buddy?
Feeling a little gray. No, it's not really gray. It's sunny out. No, this is going to be an amazing topic because we've had the new In Search of Aliens Bigfoot episode and some other things. So it goes kind of right in theme that we've been doing for the last few weeks. So ancient origins, it is.
Yeah, that's for sure. That's right, people. We're going to go all the way back to, well, even quite possibly the origins of Homo sapiens sapiens. We're going to talk about all that theory tonight. But first, we got to talk about the news items of the week. You know, one of the things I found in my news feed right before showtime tonight, folks, is actually kind of exciting. I wish I was still back there. Finding Bigfoot is putting out a call for all the squatchers in the Knoxville, Tennessee area. That's right. They are going to do the largest grid search for Bigfoot evidence right there in the home, right near the Louisville Slugger where they were making them Bigfoot bets for him there during last season. So they're doing it on the 12th of September at 5 p.m. Greater Knoxville area. You can check out the event on the Finding Bigfoot page if you would like to get involved with that. I know that's right up there by Kentucky. It's Knoxville's not far from a lot of different places. So, you know, squatchers, they're calling you out, man. They need your help. And it looks like Moneymaker and Bobo and Cliff and the whole gang is going to be there. You'd be the chance to meet them people, too. What about that, David? If you were in town, would you go out there and help them out?
Absolutely. Just to be a part of there's two things. It would just be fun to go be a part of the TV production, just do the thing, whatever. And two, like, the networking. I mean, they're going to call in all people that are interested, intrigued, and all these people that are actually doing field research, and it's a huge opportunity for networking, and I'm sure you can spot the squatcher. Just spot the squatcher.
That's right, just spot the squatcher. Well, it's definitely something you want to look into. One of the other things that I found this week that was really, really cool, they found the 3,800-year-old California skeleton could quite possibly have one of the first signs of gigantism. And this just goes to show that there are and always have been genetic defects that will make gigantic people on this planet. And it's just so strange that this one particular skeleton was the one that they found, considering that all the other ones probably didn't have gigantism.
Not so fast, says Dr. Meldrum. Uh-oh. So basically what we have here is some traits of gigantism, some cranial features and joint features and deformities in the joints that look like gigantism today. However, this person was only 5'4" tall, so not by any standards a giant even 3,800 years ago.
Oh, so it could have been like a dwarf then. I mean, dwarves look like they've got giant heads and little bones and.
Well, so what they're saying is it has the traits. Now, it doesn't gigantism, it not only does it make somebody very large, but it also does. There's some deformities to the joints that make things difficult, and some prominent like jaw lines and other things. So I mean, it is something that's a very specific set of genes that are going to make this happen. So it's something that is like the earliest known morphological case, because I don't know if they tested the genome on this. I doubt they did. But there are these traits that can be seen this far back, even though it wasn't a giant person.
That is sweet. Well, you know what else was in the news this week was this newly discovered engravings that may revise the picture of Neanderthal intelligence. Of course, art being one of the things considered to be of higher intelligence along the Homo sapien line that Neanderthal was always thought to have left behind. Now all of a sudden they're finding some engravings in some near these Neanderthal burials that are making people think, well, maybe possibly they did actually think in an abstract type of way, which is kind of neat as well.
Well, so actually, if I may, there was this was posted in the lounge. Actually, somebody tagged me and said, "Have you seen this?" And I just had barely seen this, but I think I'll just we'll put Dean Cooper on the spot here. He said this probably really great, but so let me just quote here because I have the Squatchers Lounge up. So if anybody wants to say anything on the show about anything we're talking about, go to the Squatchers Lounge. Facebook.com/group/SLounge and put it up there. We'll talk about it. But so the article indirectly quotes that Neanderthals use red ochre to tan hides. Figuring out that red ochre can tan hides is already fairly abstract. The discovery of the use of fire dates back to Homo erectus, later Homo erectus and Negraster in Africa. Okay, so figure out how to make fire in figuring out how to make fire in itself is an abstraction, and a creative projection was needed to discover its issues. Humans, from which these later H. erectus have they're creative already, basically. So it would be amazing, or I would be amazed, that Neanderthals and Denisovans didn't have some form of art like most early humans. Most of what early humans use is organic and yada yada yada. And basically what he's saying is that it would be amazing to think that we had this abstraction and this artistic, this industrialized process, and that Neanderthals didn't. And I think that was a really, really poignant thing. Basically, he concludes the short rant by, once fire was discovered, Prometheus was unbounded. So it's really exciting that we're finding more of these things to kind of bolster what we already knew. It's kind of like if for all the pet owners and things out there, and to know that yes, your dog has some sort of consciousness and empathy. I mean, I know my cats have empathy. My baby cries and the cats come around. There's this empathetic they're trying to soothe. They come and they huddle around. So we already know these sort of things, but to have the Cambridge last year sign a declaration of non-human consciousness, and empathy being included in that, it's cool that we're actually getting to a point now where we're where we can back up what we understand with facts, and that the more we find art and Neanderthal sites using pigments and seashells and possibly making necklaces and jewelry and other things like that. I mean, that's huge because this find was before any modern Homo sapiens should have been in the area, which is why it's significant.
Absolutely. So that's really, really cool. And, next up, dude, I don't know if you really got a chance to look at this or not, but apparently there's an unknown limb recovered by Stacy Brown in Florida that could actually belong possibly to a non-human primate. They're calling it a possible skunk ape arm, but that's what the blog ads are saying. I don't believe that Stacy's actually calling it that. They're just calling it an unknown arm. But apparently, here's a video of Dave of the Sasquatch Hunters releasing it to the world. If you go out to the Sasquatch Hunters on YouTube, you'd actually be able to check out the video for yourself. I'm not porting the actual audio through to it. But, yeah, apparently they recovered this thing while they were out on an expedition, and nobody's been able to readily identify it as anything yet.
Now, I've seen some of the photos. I haven't actually watched this or whatever, and I think that they're being very clever saying non-human primate. Because it does have some of the joints, and the first thing I think of, okay, well, is it a bear? Was it some other animal that has its joints that are decomposed, and all the collagen in between the joints has come apart, and it looks like a hand now. There was that the raccoon foot or whatever, the rabbit foot from all those documentaries of years past.
Oh, I think that was a beaver foot. Actually.
Oh yeah, beaver. Yeah, that's the one. I couldn't remember where it actually came from. But these things can be, I mean, again, once all the bones and joints in your hands come if you count back on the joints here, what we're looking at in that first digit that comes out of the cluster of joints that you can't see because of the organic material there, that should all be enclosed in a hand, but it's not, and it just even if the hand or the skin was coming down farther and being webbed like a beaver or like another type of animal, it can appear as though it's more primate-like than it actually is, But there is a good potential that this, if you look at how sturdy the bones are, especially in that forelimb, that this is something that. Yeah, I don't know.
I don't know what it is either. I mean, I'm looking at this thing and I go, okay, so it's roughly 17 inches long, including the fingers. So it's not human, or at least it's not adult human. Adult human would be, 3 feet long, not half that size. So
looking at the morphology of the bones and just the bones in the forearm. Why am I forgetting my anatomy right now? Like the radius and the what I don't know. But anyway,
the weenus bone and the Hompton bone.
Yeah, those are not. That's not a human forearm. However, most mammals have the turnable forearm like that, and the two bones up there. I mean, that's just something that
right. One bone, two bones, many bones is the morphology of mammal limbs. It works in pretty much all the mammals, from swimming mammals to land mammals. One bone, two bones, many bones is how the limbs actually complete out of the shoulder socket. So,
yeah, but it's at 17 inches. That's something that is interesting because it's potentially larger than just like an escaped macaque. So, but like it could be a very large, like feral macaque, and then the term unknown, because we don't know what it is, non-human primate would be correct, which is very clever in the way that they're wording those things.
So it's just one of those things that's come out this week, and we're following it. And finally tonight, I wanted to talk a little bit about Melba Ketchum's plea to the public. Apparently,
this one.
Yeah, apparently she got a wind of Matt Knapp's BigfootCrossroads.com article from last week about the Killing Bigfoot special. And now she's put out a call to the public the no-kill people need to stand up and be heard. This is wrong on so many levels, and it sets a new lower precedent. They actually asked her to be on this show. So, yeah, Melba Ketchum's asking everybody to, just go out and gum up the works, as she says, to make sure that everybody knows that the Sasquatch Genome Project has proof. We're still waiting for that proof, Melba. And furthermore, to ask them why they would put people like this on TV. Well, because it's good entertainment, Melba. We don't have to ask them why. But yeah, as soon as you're ready to provide that 4 terabytes of usable data that are not skewed, we'll be happy to see that Sasquatch Genome Project proof. But till then, let me see a couple of scientists that are willing to back you up. What are you thinking, David?
I'm thinking there's no scientists are going to back that up, because it's not what it was said to be on the outset. And why she's still even doing this is just like to have fun, like trolls unite, or does she truly believe in this data? It's got to be that she truly believes in the data that's been put forth. I mean,
well, I think she's buying her own crap. I really do. Wait, when I click on the link, the message says this channel does not exist. Well, you know what, guys? Here, let me go ahead and put the live link out for you. Sorry there, Russ. Let me get you. There's a bunch of people that found the link, but here, I will just post up the link right there for you in the comments of the picture. Sorry about that, guys. There you go. There's the live link for you. I don't know why. S Lounge Podcast. Well, I spelled it right. Who knows? Anyhow, guys, back to the subject at hand. Melba is selling books, guys. That's what she's doing to you. She's out there trying to sell her wares, and that's all she's going to have for the rest of her time. She wrote her project paper the way she wanted to write it, and nobody wanted to believe it. So now she's going to sell you fiction on how to make love to a Bigfoot, I guess. Not really sure what's going on in that camp. What do you think, David?
Well, is that like 30 Shades of Dark Brown?
30 Shades of Dark Brown is
but no, I think I mean, like the whole project in and of itself was kind of like a, I don't know, like a money suck, and she got the 15 minutes of fame. Sorry. You know, like, but it kind of, you know, she had that going for her. She's still got some really devout followers slash trolls that are willing to go to task on all this stuff. We recently in this Watchers Lounge, sorry for anybody who got sucked into that, but had some people that came in there. And basically, you know, they hadn't read the study, they didn't know the story, and I started talking about a couple things in my experience of being like, you know, somewhat involved with that, like just even slightly involved in that, and they're like, well, show me proof. It's like, well, I don't have to. That's my experience. I was explaining to you my experience. Go read the paper and, you know, check the sources, and you'll find out that one of them was actually quoted. One was an April Fool's joke. And one of the sources was an April Fool's joke in the paper that was published, that she released. It's no longer available, probably because it's too easy to tear it apart, and it's easier to amass the army of trolls that way.
Yeah, now that you mention it, I did actually happen to miss it, and the reason that I missed it was, well, I was on Bigfoot expedition back up to the Sierra site with Justin Smeha, and there was some other special guests up there with me as well. I was up there with John. John is a Bigfooter from the Bay Area here, and he's a private Bigfooter. He's not a Facebook Bigfooter. He's not out in the public. He's a hell of a good guy out there trying to answer some questions of his own. We were up there with his son and his son-in-law, who are, you know, they're wheeling guys, man. They like to run through the woods and beat up their trucks and do that type of thing. Ex-Marine, you know, level-headed people. And yeah, I gotta tell you, it's probably this past holiday weekend was probably the most Bigfoot vocals I ever experienced in one trip, in one site, in 20 years of doing this, man. It really was absolutely amazingly off the hook with vocals up there. Stuff that nobody knew what they were. The very first, when we got up there, Justin was there, and Mike Green of the Squeaky video out in North Carolina was up there, and he had been up there for about 5 weeks at the time that we had gotten up there. And it had been quiet up there for a week. They had nothing, not a howl, not a sound, not a print, not a track, not nothing. I mean, they were just like about this, just like screw it, let's pack up and go home. And we rolled into camp that night, and I think we heard a tree knock the first night, but nothing that was anything real particular. We all kind of rolled in early, went to sleep. The next day, the fellows had gone out to work on another camp that we're setting up. And Justin and I were sitting we were sitting there in camp, and off from the distance came a low, high, low howl. I looked over at him, and, you know, his eyeballs, you know, he recognized it. He heard it. Neither one of us talked because we know how this works. Then another one came, low, high, low, coming from beyond where the shot site was. Well, the fellas had just left to go up there to get a camera, so maybe it was them doing, you know, maybe it was them doing calls from the top of the hill. So we went ahead and messaged them, and 5 minutes later, like, no, we didn't make any howls. Like, really? No, this is daytime. 3 o'clock in the afternoon, broad daylight. We're getting low, high, low howls that are unlike. They're not coyotes. The coyotes, one, don't howl during the daytime. They just don't. But whatever this wasn't happy to be making these howls. It was really, really strange, man. That was just the very first, you know, full day that we were out there.
Yeah, that's good times. I mean,
well, that's how you start. Then it's like, you know, okay, so we got the camp loaded with therms. I mean, there's the biggest therm we've ever had. John's got that one. Justin is up there with his thermal. There's night vision going on. John Green's got a van up there with a night vision set up on it that'll go 360 degrees. I mean, there's more night vision eyeballs going around this place now than you'd like to see. And they went out and they just blips, nothing that, you know, not a blob, nothing worth seeing or saying was there, but the tree knocks were there. We didn't do a tree knock one. We didn't do a howl one. We did not do a call, a tree knock, a thump. We didn't do squat to try and call these animals in. I wasn't feeling too well from the altitude sickness. I'm susceptible to altitude sickness. I'll admit to it, and I've got a solution to it now, thank goodness. But I had actually turned in the second night early because I just wasn't feeling well, and I hadn't had a chance to get out of the altitude since we had been up there. So I went ahead and turned in early, and the guys had stayed up, and they had gotten a couple of whales from the distance and a tree knock, but nothing real susceptible. The coyotes came in real close. They came in through camp, ate up some of the bait that was out there. And then as soon as dawn hit, I woke up. I got up and went over and warmed up a little bit, was sitting there, and I'm sitting there in a chair, and I hear, crack, 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 crack. I'm sitting in my chair going, everybody is asleep. Now, this isn't a tap. This isn't, this isn't a tree falling. This is a definite rhythmic smacking of wood against wood. And I sat there silent for a moment. I'm like, somebody had to have heard that to wake up. I mean, it's just somebody had to hear that. 10 seconds later, crack, 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 crack. And I was like, okay, I got to get somebody up now. I can't wait for somebody to wake up now. So I sneak around the John's got his big trailer rig there. I snuck around it, and Justin's tent was on the other side of it. And of course, everybody's armed in this camp. I mean, we're smart people. Okay, there's bears, there's cougars, there's all kind of stuff that eat you out there. So you don't just go sneaking up on somebody's tent. So at that point, I was like, hey, Justin, you know I wouldn't do this, dude, but you need to get up. There's shit going on out here. Wake up. Nothing from his tent. Not even a stir. And that's not like him. I mean, he sleeps light. So I grab a hold of the rain fly and I shake it. I'm like, Justin, dude, you need to wake up, bro. I hate to do this, but get up. Nothing. I load oh, shit, his truck's gone. His cousin had come in the night before, and they had gone out hunting up in the illegal place to go hunting that morning, or at least looking. That's what they were going out to do. So they were gone. Fuck. So yeah, I'm just like, oh man, now what do I do? I'm like, all right, screw it. So I go back and sit down to my chair at camp again, and I'm like, well, maybe it'll start up again. Hopefully, I didn't scare it away. Well, just then, John's son Ryan had gotten up out of the tent. I was like, did you hear that cracking noise a little while ago? And he's like, you mean them woodpeckers? I'm like, yeah, let's say we're 8-foot tall woodpeckers and weighed about 800 pounds. I think that's not what we're dealing with out here. And he got to scratching his head from it, and he's like, yeah, it wasn't the rat-a-tat-tat-tat-tat of a woodpecker, was it? I'm like, no, it was like Louisville, like Louis standing up to the tree, just crack, 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 crack. It was like it was enough time for somebody to pull back a bat and hit it again. But we knew for a fact that there wasn't a soul else around us camping outside of the people that were already in camp, and you could hear people walking around the upper level. If it was a human walking on the upper road, even sitting in camp quietly like I was, you could hear the footsteps of a person if it was a person up there making those crack sounds. So for the first time in my Bigfooting career, I've heard wood knocks that I would have to say were not accountable to a natural occurrence in the woods. Jamie.
That's pretty exciting. Well, yeah, and I know, like, there's so much deadfall up there, like, just walking through, like, walking down the road, you make gravel boot sounds, and it does, like, as it hooks around. If you're where I think you were, like.
Yeah, but you know exactly where we were. I was sleeping in my hammock where you parked your truck, or your car when you were up there.
Yeah, and so when there's no way to be silent up there, which is even more infuriating that you can't hear what's coming in and out when stuff happens there. But I don't know. We'll see what happens.
Right. So that day we're all sitting around in camp. We're barbecuing up some food, and literally what we thought was a chirp from like a police car came from the lower end of the meadow there. It was just a whoop. And everybody whose ears were facing that direction were just like, eyeballs got this big around. And we're just like, oh, did you? And the guys that were facing the other direction, they were actually engaged in speaking when it went off. They didn't hear it. And it was like the most frustrating thing, because the one fellow that was there, Patrick, the son-in-law, both of the what we would attribute to Bigfoot vocals, he missed. He was in the trailer when the other ones went off. So that poor guy didn't actually hear.
That's me. That is me. Like, if I'm out bigfooting, it's like, hey, I'm going to go use the restroom real quick, and then I come back and like, what, I missed something?
I mean, without a doubt, without seeing it, I can't say it was a Bigfoot, but it sure as hell was a primate whoop, and it was so distinctively loud. The John swore it was a cop car. And, of course, again, you would have heard a car coming. I mean,
well, if it's on the low side of the meadow, there's no road, right? There's no approach. There's a cliff.
Right. That's exactly right. To a 5-foot or 100-foot drop to another road. So, yeah, there's no way to get in and out of there without anybody hearing you. There's no way to sneak up on that camp without somebody in that camp hearing you. It's just not. That's why it's the camp.
Well, apparently that's not true.
Well, I mean, if you're 8 foot tall and have giant friggin' feet and you're a ninja through the damn woods, of course you can't sneak up on them. But guess what? They're not sneaking up on them anymore. They're kind of starting to be able to predict where they're coming from. And, over the time that's been out there now, I've gotten a lot of the reports of the activity of what they're happening, and I'm starting to kind of get a really better grip of what's happening out there. And I think next season, if they don't get extremely lucky this season and end up taking care of business, I think next season we're going to be able to really tackle it hard and hopefully stir up some footage, some better footage, some thermal at night. But these animals are moving around up there during the day, and it's the weirdest thing. I've never seen Bigfoot activity during the day on a regular basis.
Well, so here's the thing. Like, if you're in an area, like, again, where they've been doing so much time up there, and they've been looking at other things, and they've been going back to the same location. I can't say that enough. If there's a good reason for you to go back to a location, just keep doing it. Try to figure out what the reason is to be there. Once you figure out that reason, if you go back there at those times and those triggers, like, there's no reason for a Sasquatch to be 100% nocturnal. For them to be awake and viable in the nighttime makes sense, because there's only one animal that sleeps for 8 contiguous hours a night, and that's humans.
Yeah, I mean, that's exactly right, and that's only modern humans, because we used to have 2 sleeps. People used to sleep from 8 o'clock at night till midnight. They would get up at midnight, they'd go visit their neighbors, they'd read a newspaper, they'd have a meal, and then they'd go back to sleep for a couple hours and then get up and go to work. This whole crap of sleeping 8 to 10 hours a friggin' night is for the birds, people. Y'all need to go back to some real work, for God's sakes.
I was gonna say that's what the 8 to 10 hour workday has done to us, because to fit that in and then to fit in other things and life and primetime television, you have to basically shut yourself down for that long. And
no, you need to learn like Japanese say, company come first, no family.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, I mean, there's a lot of ways that humans are unique in the way that we're sleeping. And to think like, okay, well, they're 100% nocturnal. Well, the animals that are 100% nocturnal are very few, and it's because they can't actually handle light in their eyes and their orbits. But they're awake during the daytime. They're just hidden. Like, owls will stay in their tree knot holes and wherever else, and as hidden as possible. But I've seen owls fly during the day. I've scared them up out of the woods during the day. The hunting pattern of a cougar is at night, but you see them during the day because that's when you can see them. Right. If you are lucky enough to glimpse them when they're shadowing around or whatever. But I mean, like, doesn't mean like they're sleeping like a cat. Like, the cats sleep like 6 to 8 times a day. That's more natural. The primates, apes in particular, bed down for the night, but you're still looking at like a 4 to 6 hour window only.
Well, I got to be honest with you. While we're up there at the site, from noonish to 3:30ish, we ain't doing nothing either. It's friggin' hot. We're seeking the shade. We're sitting around in camp chairs.
Might as well just take a nap, a siesta.
Right. We're moving out of the sunlight into this tree shade like morons, instead of putting up the damn tarp that was sitting there on day 1. We waited until the last day to friggin' do like that like dumbasses.
This is amazing.
I don't even feel like a real dumbass, because that tarp had been sitting there for 6 weeks for the other guys that never bothered to put it up. But, we're literally not doing anything during the heat of the day either. We're just moving around and laying around in the shade. So why would we expect any kind of other animal that's big and hairy to be up there doing the same thing in the heat of the day? They're going to be laying around in the shade somewhere too. It's not any uncommon that the humans are doing that. But like I said, I've been out in Florida, Bigfoot territory a lot, and have never in my life heard the kind of vocals that we heard sitting out here at daytime. I've always said that first light is a very, very, very good time for Bigfoot activity, and I reasserted myself that again on the last morning. Again, unfortunately, the altitude sickness had really, I mean, it was like right after dark. I was just like, you know what? I know what this is doing. And the guys were going to stay up late. I mean, they were all like pounding up on rock stars and energy drinks. I mean, they were going to stay up late and make sure that they were vigilant. So I was like, okay, if anything happens, come get me. Because Justin had already moved out. Mike had already moved out. It was basically just us up there. The coyotes, they were out with a collar. They were doing wounded fawn, and they were calling in some of the animals, and the coyotes just came through and tore up everything. If it was dead land in the woods, the coyotes ate it. They had a weird howl that they couldn't get out of the recorder for the coyotes. It's like the coyotes were between the recorder and the howl, and that was about it. So like 3:30, they were like, okay, it's really freaking cold out there. It's time. So everybody came and bed down. And when first light hit, again, I said, okay, well, we're going to be packing up here pretty soon. Let me go ahead and get up. So I went out there and I sat back in my chair again, first light, and right at the edge of my hearing, I'm hearing the Ohio howl. That and I was like, five of them in a row. Right off of the edge of the wind. You could just I counted the spaces between them, and they were not the same. So it wasn't like it was a siren going off, right? Well, the rancher that lives up there 5 months out of the year that doesn't believe in Bigfoot and swears to God he's never seen anything up there that relates to Bigfoot, tells us on the way out when we were just dropping off Justin's night vision scope, yeah, someone down at Parkett Station must have had an air raid station going off this morning at 5:30. Well, he's 12 miles from where we were. So when he was 12 miles closer to the whales that early in the morning, and Parkett Station doesn't have an air raid station. So that's literally how my whole adventure ended, was the morning that we were catching up. Apparently, something was wailing up on the hilltop. So it was not on our peak, it was on another peak, but I could actually hear it. So not only are they dealing with the group or possibly groups of Bigfoot, and we'll talk about that on a future podcast once I get all this Sierra stuff put together in my head. There not only are the group or possible groups that they're dealing with there on that site, but there are definitely groups that are using other bridges around there as well. So
like you always say about the viable breeding population, man. You can't have just one group, or else you would have gone extinct, thousands of years ago. Like, you have to have lots of different groups, and you have to have genetic diversity, and you have to be able to move in between. It's probably that moving in between is where we see them on those low level, river floodplains. But knowing where those are is potentially important. But that's why there's activity that is like, okay, every 3 to 5 to 7 years is when you have this activity. If you think about it, if like we were talking about the breeding patterns of most non-human primates, aside from humans who proliferate really quickly, like you can basically have a baby right after you have a baby. So you're you could have a baby every year or less. Usually in the wild, it doesn't make sense to have a baby less than 3 to 6 years if you're a primate, apparently, and that's what nature shows us now. So if it's every 5 years, well, maybe that's big boy juvenile moving out to greener pastures and looking for love in all the wrong places.
Right, and this particular location is very, very unique in how the valley is only at 5,000 feet, and everything goes up from there. So as the vastness of the valley floor acreage goes up in altitude, the acreage gets smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller as the food sources go on. And literally, again, like we were up in Bluff Creek, we were sleeping in the food source. The berries were there, the chipmunks were there, the wood rats were there, the pack rats were there, the owls were all over the place. We didn't hear any of the owls, which I thought was very strange as an owl biologist. I really kind of had to scratch my head because the guys had them on thermal, but I heard not a one. So that was kind of weird to me, but they were there. And all of the activity, and I'm going to give away a big secret here, and I've said it before, but it's seriously something to consider. I think I've proven my hypothesis. I'm going to move it into a theory that the Bigfoot activity normally comes from 500 to 750 feet above the food line. With, like most predators, that's where they're going to bed down. That's where they're going to roam through so that they can see what's in the food line so they can either come down and get it or avoid it.
Avoiding it's huge. Even if you're a big, strong Sasquatch, nobody wants to get into a tussle. You're not going to be able to go. You're not going to be rushed to the hospital. There is no 911. If you're a big, mean, nasty, freaking primate, and there's a bear down there chomping on those berries that you want to get to, you're probably going to make sure that bear. You're going to separate yourself. If you're smart, you can separate yourself from the bear. Make sure that bear's not there when you're coming back down into those food sources. But you go night up where there's nothing that you're going to worry about, and then you let the cougars and everything come down at night and go down and get the prey that they're looking for in that food line. It makes total sense. I mean, a lot of us have thought about this before, but being right above it is the good thing.
Yep, I think with the experiences that I've had up there at this particular site, I can say that in the Sierras, that the activity, when we were out there earlier in the year, we were way too high on the food sources, and there was jack going on. There were no rodents, there were no birds, there were no nothing, and there was zero activity. I mean, so literally, when you guys are out there, you've got to find your food sources. Once you find your food source, set your camp up 500, 700 feet above it as you can, and see what's hanging out with you. You're going to end up probably with more experiences that way than you are actually laying down where the berries are actually burning. My ideas, anyhow.
Exactly.
So, man, that I got to tell you, we're going back up. Yeah, the dude just like, blah! You know, the guys aren't convinced that they're Bigfoot, but when I looked at Ryan and I asked him, I'm like, okay, so what made those sounds that we heard? He was like, well, like you said earlier, I could tell you what doesn't make those sounds, and they're mountain lions and bears and black-tailed deer and mule deer. They don't make those kind of whoop sounds. I'm like, yeah. And this wasn't a squeal. This wasn't like a doe squeal, or, you know, this was a definite whoop primate from the W to the P. And everybody who knew what a Bigfoot whoop was supposed to sound like's eyeballs got the size of coffee saucers. I mean, it was just like quintessential.
And for the people that haven't heard that or that don't know, like, I mean, your options are that's a big primate, like bigger than it's not an escaped macaque, or it's a Bigfoot, or it's a person. Like,
right.
But again, like, knowing the area where you were, knowing the actual geography and the directions that you're saying, like, a person is really hard to get into those areas.
We are sitting on the only way in, and you can hear for miles. You can come in on a quad. Don't get me wrong. Absolutely. You could walk in there and do something stupid like that in that particular location. However, if you would be smart enough to do that, you would probably observe the camp first and realize that these people are looking to shoot something. So to go down in there and hoax at that particular moment would probably not be the wisest decision for a human to do that. But if you tried to come in there within a couple of miles by any type of a vehicle, there is no doubt in my mind that you would be hurt.
But I mean, that area again, it's like if you look here, I mean, you're camped out. There's two ridges and fingers, and you're like camping in the crook of the thumb,
right?
And you can't access it from the fingers, so you have to come in from that back side. Like, you could get in there from a quad just as easily as you get in there with my Subaru at the time. Like, you could go past it and come back in. You could stop short and move around,
but you'd be hurt.
But it would be almost impossible to be completely silent. I mean, yeah, I suppose somebody could hike, like, try to be a ninja like 5 miles in and not hear that. But again, like, we had a couple people that left and came back while we were up there, and you can hear that from a long way away because there is no other sound up there. I mean, you can hear everything that goes on. So.
And we actually went clear up. We took the quads out for a good ride. Found a new water source. I'm all about the springs, freshwater springs. There's got to be running fresh late water season where your Bigfoot activity is, or you don't have Bigfoot activity. And of course, we found a giant late season pool of water that's an established pool, been there forever. Somebody's dammed it. It's freshwater in and freshwater out. There's no snow up there, so it's got to be coming out of seepage from somewhere and collecting down into this pool. And, I mean, it's probably a century-old pool. So there's the late water season. Yeah, there's seeps all over the place. And, yeah, they say there's water everywhere, but that's not what these creatures are drinking from when they got to be consuming. If we're consuming a gallon of water, they're probably consuming a gallon and a half. Do you really think Sasquatch is there with a piece of sponge, seeping it, sponging it out of the seep and sucking it out of the sponge, or is he looking for a freshwater pool where he can get them great big old friggin' paws of, giant cups down in there and suck all the water down he wants to?
Yeah, exactly. And yeah, you're not gonna take a trickle. You want something that's viable, and you want it to be like. And that's the thing. Like you talk about the freshwater springs, like those are coming down through. It's like nature's filtration system, where like just drinking out of the river with all the the dead fish and the other stuff and the giardia and the duck poo and all this other stuff. Like if you can find that freshwater source, I mean. If nothing else, it's just you're gonna remember it and you're gonna taste that difference or whatever. Like this doesn't taste like goose shit, or something, right? And that's gonna be something that you're gonna look for. And the byproduct of that is that you're not gonna get intestinal discomfort from drinking that water like you would
exactly.
with a major river. So come on, why wouldn't you do that if you were a primate looking for stuff and you were halfway intelligent? I mean, as intelligent as a chimpanzee and a gorilla. How about that?
Right. If you're just exactly super intelligent than human, you ought to be able to find water that doesn't have giardia in it. Folks, that's all I'm going to give away tonight in the Sierra evidence so far. We've got
long already.
Yeah, you can't even imagine the amount of hours of audio that we're going to have to go through to extract all of this stuff. But most of it should have been captured on audio recorders, so we should at least have these vocals out. Hopefully, God only knows. It's just going to. It's taking me some time.
Well, what's actually going to happen is that there's going to be these the EMF bursts that the gray aliens are going to push down, and you're not going to get any of that audio. It's going to have completely erased it from all the recorders whatsoever.
Well, let's not hope for that. All right, folks.
If you need some help on the audio, by the way, you know where to go.
Yeah, I got the sad thing is they're not even mine. I got to get copies of them first. So, the first we're going to talk about why can't we find Sasquatch? Well, Giorgio says it's aliens. Giorgio, we like you, dude. And, people have been giving me crap ever since we've been talking about this whole Giorgio Tsoukalos in search of Bigfoot whatever the crap he was doing out there with Derek Randalls and the Anunnaki. And I got to tell you, people, please understand. I like Giorgio. I do. I'd love to have him come on the podcast. We could talk Ancient Alien Bigfoot all he wants to. It's fine. I don't have a problem with him personally. I have a problem with people taking what he says as gospel. Okay? He's a sports guy. He read a few books, and just like the guys whose books he read, none of them had science backgrounds either. This entire Ancient Alien things that we're going to delve into here for a little while is fun to think about, but please don't take it as fact.
Well, again, it's a theory. It's fun. It's sci-fi, and it's sci-fi meets primatology meets human origins. My favorite take on this, we'll probably get into this. Like, there's like the whole Van Daniken Sitchin thing, and then there's also like the Lloyd Pye, where he takes like the paleoanthropology and puts that into the mix and talks about all that too. Like, I mean, it's really fascinating. And the comment that I have always is that it was based on a lot of the loose facts that we didn't have, and the fact that we got our family human tree even 10 years ago was wrong. And people like these guys saw that was wrong. There were some issues with it, and they made up these other hypotheses for how this could have been, and of course it involved visitors from another planet and intervention and genetic manipulation and all these other things. But we're finding out more and more that, like, okay, well, this story is more complicated than we ever understood, and we don't understand it anymore. What we thought we understood, we don't know. So yes, Lloyd Pye, R.I.P. We won't say anything bad about him. Everything we did know then was wrong.
Right. Well, yeah, let's go ahead and kick out the first part of it. The original Ancient Alien series, Ancient Alien Theories series. Let's get this straight first. They need to call it Ancient Aliens Hypotheses, whatever it needs to be. It can't be theories because none of the hypotheses have actually been proven, so we can't move straight from hypothesis to theory. It doesn't really work. Doesn't work too great for a TV show name, but Ancient Alien Hypothesi. What is it, David? Which one is that?
Well, so okay, I mean, what you do is you do all your background research, like historically, which is what they've done, and you gather all the information and you make your best guess. That's your basically, it's not even your hypothesis at that point. It's, well, I guess your question is, so first in science you have to ask a question. The question is, well, how did this happen, or what does this mean? What does this painting mean with these disc-shaped things in the back, or whatever? What does this painting mean with this, war in the heavens? Is that some other thing? And then you do all the background research, and then you come up with a hypothetical situation for why that could have been. Now, these are not testable hypotheses because these artists and people who wrote these texts have been dead for thousands of years in some cases, so it's hard to test these hypotheses. Oh, what was he thinking when they created this battle in the sky and this story of that, and why were there disc-shaped things? Why is this a theme? Like, I'm not gonna poo-poo UFOs because I'm a Bigfoot guy.
Right.
There's enough people.
Tell me again how your UFO people are crazy.
Yeah. And I'm not gonna poo-poo ghosts, and I'm not gonna poo-poo all this other paranormal stuff. I just don't think that it's all interrelated. Until it comes to speaking into your mind. Maybe then it's somewhat interrelated because that's an interpersonal experience. Okay, moving on. So these are hypotheticals, and when they're talking about Bigfoot in particular, they're talking about the alien intervention theories. How right. At some point there were all of these monkey men walking around, and then boom, all of a sudden, in the fossil record, like our Homo sapiens morphological features just show up. Even the Neanderthals and the Heidelbergenses, like, their brains were getting bigger, but they were getting bigger in the back, the occipital bun. They didn't have, like, their forehead stopped about here and it sloped back and it was longer and doing that sort of thing. Now we all know that, like, the human skull, even in the like pre-erectus, is like something that's going to be small, and it splits off into parts and it grows, and so that's a plastic thing, and it's hard to really subscribe that to any particular occurrence aside from, like, wow, our brains got real big, and so we got to do something about this. So the alien intervention theory is interesting, and it goes back to, correct me if I'm wrong, Jeff, because I didn't really do a lot of study on this, but it's like the Sitchin aspect of the Sumerian Anunnaki.
Yeah, that's basically where it comes down to. Zechariah Sitchin basically took the ancient Sanskrits and decided that he was going to decode them. Now, much like today's ancient Hebrew, outside of like 9 people on the planet who think they can read it, nobody else can. Well, at the time, ancient Sanskrit had been dead for 1,000 years. So no one really knew what these tablets actually said, other than this guy who with absolutely no science background who stared at them for endless hours upon hours and made some guesses and wrote a book about it. And when he wrote the book on the stories of the ancient the ancient Sumerians, basically much like Van Daniken's book Chariots of the Gods, it was a lot of questions. What if? What if? If then? These were the questions and the statements that come out of those types of books. So if the Anunnaki came from outer space, and if they interjected their DNA into these monkey people on the planet, then Homo sapiens must be the result of those things. Then Bigfoot should be the original biological leftover of what the Anunnaki first started with when they came and changed us into mining creatures.
Now, well, once you get to the mining creatures, you get a little specific. The rest of that is a logical based statement, like, you know, the if then, and then a hypothesis, right? If this happened and this happened, then here's our hypothesis. Okay,
Right.
but now you have to test that, and it's interesting, and the backing data on that is all the conjecture. It's about the change in the splitting of splitting chromosomes and all.
Right. But let's go back to the original thought. We don't really care about all of that. What we're looking at is the ancient alien theory in itself, to where if the Homo sapiens were the ones that were tampered with or changed over, therefore the Bigfoot would be the original biological material leftover, then they're the original humans. That's quite interesting in itself. They would be the biological leftovers of what didn't get manipulated by us.
Well, which is absolutely like an interesting theory, but it, of course, but the way the evolution works and the spiderweb evolution, and still, like, again, when like Lloyd Pye's book came out, we were still looking at like a linear evolution. It was just like groups of people. Like what we understand now, it's like it would make absolute nonsense to believe what we believed back then. And then when you go back into like Linnaean clandistics, you're like, this is we're way past that. And even Darwinian evolution, like we're way past that. There's so many more aspects to it that we understand, but it's still a thing. And we still have to like look at it. And so the original human, what are you talking about? Where is that line? And so it's not even that we're looking for the missing link anymore. We're trying to decide where humans where
right.
it stops.
which missing link? Because like we talk about here on the podcast a lot, and people ask me, my theories of. I just got finished watching all of the Ancient Alien stuff, and Dr. Meldrum, of course, was brought in on that program. And I like Dr. Meldrum. Again, people get off my butt about Dr. Meldrum. Okay, I'm just a critical thinker, and I'm calling him on the table for being anti-critical, one of the things that he should be. Anyhow, he was on the program talking about the skull of Gigantopithecus and these large muscles that come down from the blah 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 and the large sagittal crest. And I'm thinking to myself, Dr. Meldrum, we've never found any bone pieces outside of a jaw, so how the hell do we know what the sagittal crest of a Gigantopithecus actually even looked like?
This is problem. Well, however, like the all the other pongids, orangutans, particularly big males, and other red apes, if you want to call them that, Matt Knapp lives in the red state. The Eastern Asia is the red apes. So like we got, the sagittal crest that comes down. Gorillas have that as well, but chimpanzees don't. Well, now why don't chimpanzees have that? They eat some vegetation too, because they're mostly frugivores, where they don't have to break down these large amounts of vegetation with a lot of chewing. The reason that Gigantopithecus was hypothesized to have that is because there's a lot of evidence to suggest that they ate, and actually because of the die-offs and regrowths of bamboo, they have a lot of possible like malnourishment issues in their lifespan, and that you can see that in their teeth. But they were eating bamboo, so they would have needed a huge crest and a lot of not biting force, but you're going to be biting constantly, like chewing like cattle or something like that. These big incisors probably to break up the hard shoots and then to chew this non-nutritious material. And so with the great die-off of bamboo is why they think that they went extinct. But it's also one of the reasons why that Gigantopithecus blacki is probably the worst analog for a North American Bigfoot, because we don't have bamboo.
Right. We wouldn't have anything for it to develop into.
That's like problem number one. Like the sagittal crest for Blackie eye makes sense based upon what we know that it was eating. Also, you know, I mean, the question came up. It was a great headline. It might have been Gizmodo or something. What does like a 9-foot 600-pound primate eat? Whatever it wants to. There were some bones that like it showed them eating fruit and other things too. But they all still had the wear patterns of that bamboo and the scrapings of that bamboo, meaning that was a large part of their diet. But they probably didn't eat that when they didn't have to. But again, tied to that area of Eastern Asia where the bamboo
which would also give it a reason for its extinction, its die-out, was the fact that that's all that was left to eat bamboo, because those are the latest teeth that we were finding. Most likely were of the last creatures. Therefore, you know, there is not a whole lot of vegetative caloric intake that comes from bamboo. So, you know, much like eating nothing but rabbit, you could probably starve to death trying to eat that crap.
Yeah, so, but again, like something that is slightly smaller, needs less calories, and still is just barely hanging on and has a tough time bringing up young. It's like someday in our experience, or our grandchildren or our grandchildren's grandchildren or whatever, we'll probably see the extinction of the giant panda because there's not enough bamboo. Like, and you know, whether it's not all human activity there. That's just something that's happened, and those specialists are having trouble. 30,000 years ago, Gigantopithecus had that trouble because it needed too many calories to sustain a large ape on that diet. So that doesn't mean that there weren't portions of them that split off that could have developed a different diet, but at that point they're no longer Gigantopithecus blacki, they're Gigantopithecus something else.
Right. Now let's go back into the ancient alien theory here.
Oh, sorry.
The next portion up of the ancient alien theory that I really wanted to get out there to really think about, people, is the idea that the Bigfoot came down and they are exiled prisoners from another planet. So a UFO comes down to Earth and dumps off the Bigfoot Bigfoot prisoner exiles onto the planet, and they're out there roaming their purgatory on Earth.
Kiwani was right. Stargate.
Absolutely, Stargate, and you'll pass your prisoners. It's kind of like Australia, like the Brits did in Australia. Hey, there's nobody living in Australia but a bunch of Aborigines on the coast, so let's just make a giant prison state. A lot of people. Let me rephrase that. There have been a few accounts where people have said that they have seen both Sasquatch and UFOs in the same encounter, even quite possibly where Sasquatch-type creatures came out of a flying disc and walked into the woodline. Now, David, what are your thoughts on that one?
You know, if you wanted to get away with hominoid abduction, that would probably be the way to go because Sasquatch doesn't have Facebook. Yeah. So there, I mean, there's a couple things that you know, people report UFO and Sasquatch together. Well, that means that they're having a willingness to kind of go along with both of those. But some people just think that the UFO thing it could be like orbs or lights or other stuff. Like, again, we could have potential misidentifications. But at the point when you're walking in and out of a disc, maybe you just did the wrong bit of mescaline and have watched Star Wars 2 recently. I don't know. Millennium Falcon. But again, like the
oh no, it's the patented Squatchers Lounge bullshit alarm.
And now let's take a deep, dark look into the fridge. That's where we're going.
We go again. Yeah, so look at that. It just goes off on its own again. Love that kind of stuff. It's crazy to think that okay, let's look at our planet for a moment. Let's take a big, long look at this UFO Bigfoot thing for a moment. Okay, if I'm an alien species out there and I'm kind of scoping the galaxy for planets to dump things on that I want to survive, I don't think Earth is going to be that planet that I choose, considering we have tsunamis and earthquakes and hurricanes and giant dust storms and sinkholes and storm. I mean, there is not a time on this planet when the entire planet is at peace. Why would you choose to come here?
Well, the appropriate question or questions, or about 1,000 questions, are the whys. Why, if there is an alien culture that's not interdimensional, is it a hominoid with all the same bits and parts as the the evolution of us like kind of shows? Why does it have 4 limbs and 5 fingers and 5 toes, forward-facing eyes, binocular vision, walks upright, it's got hair instead of fur, yada, yada, yada. The list goes on. Why that? Also, why does it even breathe, like oxygen? Like, well, not oxygen, air, like nitrogen and oxygen. Why is that what it's going to need to survive, and not, it's cold methane? Like there's so many, looking for life on other planets. They're not looking for life that can be sustained here, because that's not going to evolve somewhere else. They're looking for life that could live in both places, like these bacteria that can live in the vacuum of space and at temperatures of minus blow your mind, and could also, because they don't need air, oxygen, could live in a methane-rich environment and could evolve different kinds of life based upon the way that the structures change over time and the resources available and yada, yada, yada. And then they're looking at the bacteria, the extremophiles that live in the chutes in the bottom of the sea and stuff like that. So why then are we having a big monkey man exiled here as an ET and extraterrestrial? I have problems with the Greys just because, unless they're actually interdimensional time travelers, there's a problem with why are they, humanoid, hominin? Why are they hominoid? like that, so but probably because we're anthropomorphizing and projecting. So again, the whole Bigfoot Sasquatch thing makes sense as a terrestrial evolved species, based on whatever evolutionary stresses that happen to it in the northern coniferous forests, yada, yada, yada.
When I look at it, and I'm gonna, my final thought on the ancient alien theories of it is it's fun, it's entertaining. Watch it. Giorgio, man, if you're out there watching it, please understand, we get it, dude. We think it's cool. But we just think it's sloppy to link those ancient alien theories to real Bigfoot research that's actually going on out there. Once upon a time, people had to reach for really long explanations of stuff to make them believable. But in today's day and age, a 7-foot to 10-foot wood ape living out there in America is paranormal enough not to have to link it to anything else. So as far as I'm concerned, thank you for bringing the attention to the Bigfoot world that you bring to national television that you did, Giorgio. But sometimes the attention is in the wrong position.
Although, when you go to the Olympic Project...
This sermon was brought to you by the Reverend Jeff Kelly. May the Squatch be with you.
Suck it! This is the
See,
Squatch's
I give up.
Sorry, sound bumpers. So, but again, I just wanted to bring up, because I just recently did watch that episode again just before we came on with Giorgio and the Olympic Project. But those guys, have some of the coolest toys. I'm sorry, the R2D2 unit on top of the car. David Ellis has the audio set to just drool over, and and that's an area where you think pretty much anybody who's interested in Bigfoot, we think that there's something going on there. So at some point you have to get down to the root of the issue and be like, okay, this is something that's going to happen. Although they did kind of pump Rich Guillemot for a little bit of his skinwalker beliefs and stories, which again I think that's extrapolation from literal.
We'll have to do a Skinwalker. Why don't we do that next week? Why don't we go ahead and talk about Skinwalker and Bigfoot next week and the connection between the two?
Well, let's do it. It's the figurative description of the literal description of the figurative is what that really boils down to. But that would be a fantastic one, and I'd love to do a little bit more research because I know about the shape-shifting stories from locally up here, but I'd love to look a little bit further and wider and look into some of those Native American stories, and we'll just go from there.
Exactly. Well, there you heard it, folks. That's going to be our topic next week. Bigfoot, skinwalkers, shapeshifters, whatever the hell else we can get into. It has been another fabulous Squatchers Lounge podcast. David, dude, we're out of time, bro. I mean, we're already long. Look at that. Who knows?
I know. You must have been excited about your trip or something.
Oh, man, I wish I had 2 hours to sit here and talk about it, but I've got lots of video, lots of pictures. I got to get this audio stuff put together, and like I said, it was more vocals than anything else, so there wasn't a whole lot of movie-type stuff like I was able to get out of the Bluff Creek stuff, but we're going to get this stuff to put together, and we'll get it out for you, and it's really going to be fun and exciting. Hey, guys, don't forget that we are going to be out of town here real soon. We got one more podcast coming up, I think, before we go out and head out for our adventure.
That is correct.
Is that what we're doing? Are we having an adventure, David? I can't ever remember what we're doing. Is that what it is? That's right. It is the Squatchcation, and we're going to be filming that real soon. So it should be a whole lot of fun. For Father David Batdorf and myself, the Reverend Jeff Kelly, thank you very much for joining in for the Squatchers On Podcast, Season 2, Episode 34, and may the Squatch be with you. Come join us at Facebook.com/SLounge. That'll get into the group. Facebook.com/SLounge Podcast gets you to the fan page. YouTube.com/ guess what? S-Lounge Podcast. That's where the YouTube channel is. Oh, and SoundCloud. I'll put up last week's podcast tonight when I get done here. Yeah. I need to keep up on that, I know.
Yeah, silly iTunes.
They need to give me a piece of the pie and I'll be a little happier with it.
I like pie.
Hey, if you want to see your t-shirt up here behind the wall, send me one. I'm easy to find on Facebook, really. Night, guys.